Hi, this is Ben from Black Talon Design. So about a year ago, Callum and I decided we wanted to get together and start a small woodworking business. Immediately, the first thing we realised is that wood is really expensive. So we decided to see if we can come up with a way to never pay for wood again. And my reasoning behind this was that buying timber is expensive, but look around, trees are everywhere. The amount of times I'd be out for a walk, I'd see fallen trees, walking past some building renovation, and they'd cut down trees. So I started doing some research into just how difficult it is to get your own wood from trees. And whilst there are some limitations, like how large of a piece of wood can you make, and how expensive some of the machinery is, I found that it's not that hard at all. Now, before I go any further and have people up in arms, I want to make it very clear that at Black Talon Design, we have never and will never chop down a tree. All the wood that we used is salvaged from fallen trees and branches, or ones that have been cut down by construction workers. So I went out for a walk, just about half an hour and no more than 10 minutes from my house, and managed to find all these lovely bits of wood. And here are just some of the products that we've managed to make from all the wood that we've collected. So let's see how you can do it too and never buy wood again. So when you're out looking for logs and picking logs, you want to pick ones that have not been on the ground too long. These will be really wet and may have started to rot. You also want to look out for these little bug holes that you see here. Those will go all the way through the wood and make it really hard to get a nice piece. So on my little outing, I managed to find a piece of cherry, nice straight bit of oak, also managed to find some hawthorn, and finally, I have no idea what this piece of wood is, but it looks really cool. Now, if you do know what this wood is, I would love to hear it. Let me know in the comment section if you know what my mystery wood is. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start sawing off all the knot holes and little branches to make it kind of flat. Next stage is I'm using a hand planer here to take the bark off and get it roughly flat. Now I'm using a very cheap hand planer because this takes its toll on the tools. I don't have many really expensive tools, but this is one I bought cheaply just to do this. I know it's going to destroy the blades going through the bark like that, but it's only a cheap planer and this is the only thing that I use this particular planer for. Now you can see on this piece of cherry we're already starting to reveal some absolutely gorgeous grain. Cherry is one of my favourite woods to work with. It's got so much character and some really pretty grain. Interesting thing I've found about working with cherry, a lot of the cherry I use was from the same tree but looks completely different depending on what part of the tree it's from. Moving on now to this piece of hawthorn, I'm going to repeat the same process. Hawthorn I think is a very beautiful wood, quite hard to find this thick, it's often kept cut short for hedgerow. It's also, I heard, quite prized by wood turners, so maybe that's something I could do. Let me know in the comments. Do you want me to cut this up and spin it on the lathe, or slab it and use it in something like a chopping board? If you've made it this far and you're still enjoying it, please, it would really help me if you would give us a like and a subscribe. Okay, let me point out here, I am not a professional woodworker. I am barely an average woodworker. And I will always point out my mistakes, because they are many and I make them almost every single day. So here goes the first one. So there we have it. Lesson number 1, always clamp the piece of wood you're working on really, really well. Watching it back, I guess the worry there for me is not the wood falling on my foot, but my natural reaction of trying to catch it and putting my fingers far too close to those spinning planer blades. So as you can see on the next one, I'm making sure this thing is clamped up really tight. It's not going anywhere. Now this is the oak, by the way. Nice wood, very, very hard. Not my favorite to work with. I think oak can be maybe a little bit boring. It's quite straight grains. Not too exciting, not the curves that you get with cherry. Also, my biggest problem with the oak is what we'll see in the next section. It takes forever to dry. Okay, on to the mystery wood. I still have absolutely no idea what this is, even after I've finished this video. I don't know what wood I'm working with here. If you recognize it, would love to know. Please let me know in the comments. But I was so happy to see this grain, and actually it popped. It was some really, really gorgeous wood. Had some really, really nice grain. Do you recognize that? Do you know what that is? Let me know. And here's what we ended up with. Remember, all we've used so far is a handsaw and a handheld planer, and a cheap one at that. We've ended up with some decent sizes of some oak, some hawthorn there. Very, very yellow right now. As it dries, that will turn more of a deep caramel brown. The mystery wood, some actual lovely grain in that mystery wood. Can't wait to slab that up and see what it looks like. And our piece of cherry with its gorgeous deep grain. So this is the hawthorn with all of the bark removed. As you can see, it's quite light right now, and there will be a lot of moisture in that wood. This is the same piece of hawthorn just 24 hours later. As you can see, it's darkening as it starts to dry out. Now, this is the big setback of getting wood yourself from trees, is the drying process. Now, as a general rule, it says 1 year per inch of thickness. Now, that is going to vary depending on the species of wood and the ambient air temperature of where you're drying it. This is for air drying. You can obviously speed this up if you have access to a kiln. And I have even heard of people drying them in a normal conventional oven that you'll find in your kitchen if you cut them small enough. Not something I've tried myself. If you have tried it, let me know how you got on with it. Now, we've been drying wood for about a year at this point, and we have a nice stockpile of different species. Some of these, as you can see on here, are going to be live edge slabs. Not the biggest slabs, but still, if you go and buy a kiln dried live edge oak slab, for example, even the small ones are going to cost you a couple of £100. And we have done this for next to nothing. Next, I usually take these debarked branches over to the table saw and cut them somewhere between 17 and 20 mil. So that's about 4/5 of an inch in old money. This means the drying time is going to be 6 to 9 months. Again, this is the limitation of doing this on the cheap. My table saw can cut to a max depth of 85 mil, meaning I can't do massive slabs without an expensive sawmill. Now, if you did want to do bigger slabs, you could simply chainsaw down the branch and then run it through a planer thicknesser. The important thing to always remember is to cut the wood considerably thicker than the thickness you want to use, because as the wood dries, it's going to warp and twist, and you have to run it through the thicknesser or the planer to get it back flat again, and you will lose some of the thickness. So here I am running it through the table saw. It's a bird's eye view because my workshop is incredibly small. I'm cutting here at about 17.5 mil. Again, that's about 3/4 of an inch, and I'm running the mystery wood through the table saw here. And again, I am so pleased with the results of this mystery wood. I do not know what it is, but it has some brilliant grain. It's absolutely beautiful. Mistake number 2. So as you can see here, one of the pieces of wood that I had selected has those small bug holes. I've taken the bark off, but you can see it goes all the way through. I'm not going to be too hard on myself this time because it is an easy one to make and they are hard to spot. But that piece of wood is not going to be very usable. So once your wood has had time to dry, you're going to want to check the moisture levels with a moisture meter. During the drying process, the wood will have warped and twisted, maybe slightly, maybe a lot, depending on the wood. So you're going to want to use the planer and the thicknesser to get both sides nice and flat, or to square it off, depending on what you're using it for. Here you can see that we have done this with a lot larger logs. We may need a chainsaw for this. With the larger pieces, we've managed to turn some into epoxy river tables. This is a layout of some of them there. Also made some squared off timber and the smaller slabs here that we then turn into things like this custom chopping board. More chopping boards, as well as coaster sets. And there's the finished products. So I can honestly say that I haven't bought a single piece of timber in the last year. Yes, you can turn trees into wood relatively cheaply, and it's not that hard. Thank you so much for watching, and please, if you've enjoyed this and you feel that we've earned it, give us a like and subscribe. Links to our online shop can be found in the video description, as well as our contact info if you want to get in touch about any bespoke items. Thanks again for watching.